Hey everybody, welcome back to the Real Estate Skills channel. I'm Ryan Zomorodi, and today we're going to be covering how to calculate your wholesale offer price. So today I've brought back Tim, who is a special guest who is very curious on how to calculate your wholesale offer price. He's learning about wholesaling and he's an absolute beginner. So we're going to be covering the fundamentals to make sure that you're submitting quality offers and that you can have successfully profitable wholesale deals. So we're going to be covering how to calculate your offer price using the wholesale formula, but more importantly, how to get granular and using our deal calculator. So we've heard a lot of you in the comments asking us to do a video on how exactly to use our deal calculator. So this is going to be that video for you all. We've listened and we are delivering. So we're going to be diving into it, but guys, make sure to stay till the end because not only are you going to learn various wholesale formulas to calculate your offer price, we're also going to be covering how to use our deal calculator to get the most competitive offer because that is what it takes to get deals in today's market. So if you guys want to get the exact wholesale deal calculator that we use in our very own businesses that we use for fix and flips and wholesale deals, be sure to go to realestateskills.com/calculator to download your very own copy so that you can get the most out of this video and you can have our calculator for your business. So Tim, let's get started. What kind of questions do you have?
Oh, just so many. When I look at the deal calculator myself, there's a lot of terms and inputs that I'm not, aware of. So, thank you so much for having me back. And at the very start of it, what exactly, is the wholesale offer price?
Yeah, great question. Great place to start. So the wholesale offer price is the offer price that a wholesaler is going to be making on any given piece of real estate with the intention to sell that contract or sell that opportunity to an end buyer, right? A cash buyer. So they need to factor in the investor's exit strategy and ultimately determine what price is going to be attractive to that cash buyer and subtract their own wholesale fee to determine how much as a wholesaler are you going to be offering on that property.
Right. So is that offer price, so what I'm making, kind of disclosed like right away to them in this case? So when I, kind of run through all of the numbers myself, they're obviously aware that I'm doing it for a fee, right? So I would say it's safe to say then that the wholesale offer price includes my assignment fee that's, disclosed to them like kind of right away, right?
Not necessarily. So when we're talking about the wholesale offer price, this is the price that you're making to the seller. So this is the price that you're going to be buying a piece of real estate. You're going to be putting under a contract with a purchase and sale agreement with a seller. And so that is the wholesale price that you're going to be getting it directly with the seller. And so when you flip that contract to an end buyer, you're going to be adding your wholesale fee on top of that.
Right.
And so that's going to be a new price. That's going to be the cash buyer's entrance price into this investment opportunity. And so depending on how you structure your wholesale deal, you may just give them the price that includes your wholesale fee, or you might give them your original contract price and then let them know that there's an assignment fee involved with that. And so when you're double closing, you'll give them the total amount. And then if you're assigning the contract, you can give them the total amount, or you can say, hey, this is my original contract price, plus there's going to be a 10, 20, 30,000 assignment fee on top of that.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So when I kind of, Google this and look this up, there's like a common wholesale real estate formula that people use without using the calculator, obviously, So can you kind of explain like that strategy? That's like the most common way to calculate that?
Yeah, the most basic way to figure out what price do you want to get a property under contract as a wholesaler is first you have to understand as a wholesaler, you're flipping the contract to an end buyer. So whatever that end buyer is looking to pay for the property, you just simply subtract your wholesale fee from that price. And so that is the price that you're going to need to get the property under contract to then be able to charge a fee on top of that contract. So again, simply put, you figure out what is your cash buyer going to pay for the property and you subtract your wholesale fee, which gets you to your wholesale offer price. So that's the most basic formula. But then the question really is, what is your cash buyer willing to pay for the property?
Right. Yeah. So with that formula, then at a very high level, can you give me like a breakdown of like how that would work, kind of in like an example of that wholesale real estate formula?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just say that you know that your cash buyer is purchasing properties at a 20% discount to the market value of a given property. So let's just call it $200,000 is what the property is worth. And so you would simply subtract 20% of that value, and that would give you the price that your buyer is willing to pay for that property. So if it's $200,000, 20% of that is going to lead you to a $160,000 value. So that when this investor is buying the property, they now have a baked in 20% equity in the deal. They're getting a discount because that's just what real estate investors do. They buy properties that have a built-in profit. They're able to monetize it somehow. So knowing that this investor would pay $160,000, now you have to figure out how are you going to get paid as a wholesaler. So then you just subtract whatever you're looking to charge on this wholesale deal. So let's just say you wanted to make $20,000.
Yeah.
Then you just subtract $20,000 from 160, and that means that you need to get that property under contract for $140,000.
Got it. So that they make money, the cash buyer, and I make that wholesale fee of $20,000 as well. Yeah.
Right.
Pretty simple, honestly, as the formula goes, right? So when you said 20% discount, which I think the general rule that I found online is called the 70% rule. So I guess that would be like 30% discount. What exactly is that? Because it's a very common thing that I see all the time. What exactly is that? Why? Where did they get that number? What is it used for? And then why? In the example that you just gave me, why did you go to 20%, not 30? I guess
Yeah, exactly. So to start, the 20%, versus 10% versus 30%, it's all about what is your investor looking to purchase? What's their investment model? What's their investment criteria? And so some investors are looking for a smaller discount than others. And so it comes down to understanding your cash buyer's criteria, which is something that we talk about very heavily in our communities, on our channel, and our content, of really understanding what is your cash buyer's business model and how are they actually making money on these investments. So it will vary. So it just comes down to what is your end goal as a wholesaler? Who are you wholesaling these properties to? And so what is the 70% rule? So the 70% rule simply states, and it can be any percent. It can be 70%, 80%, 60%. But the 70% rule states that you take the after repair value of a property. So what is this property worth after repairs, after it's been improved? You multiply that number by 70%, and then you subtract repairs from that number to ultimately determine what is the maximum allowable offer for that investor. So what that simply says is at that 70% number, as an investor, that's the all-in cost that you're going to want to be on a property that's going to be worth 100% of that value. So you're essentially baking in a 30% gross margin into the deal. So for example, if you knew that your property is going to be worth $100,000 after it's all fixed up, right? Very low price point, but easy example.
Right.
So let's say the ARV, the after repair value, is $100,000. If you're using the 70% rule, you multiply 100,000 by 70%, that gets you to $70,000, and you subtract the repairs from that number. So if it cost $20,000 in repairs, then an investor is going to want to buy it for $50,000.
Got it.
Because $50,000 purchase price plus $20,000 in repairs, once you're all in at $70,000, it should in theory be worth $100,000. So as an investor, you've just made a return on your money because you've effectively paid $70,000 for something that's worth $100,000.
Right.
So that's how you make a return on your money. And as a wholesaler, if you know that your cash buyer is willing to pay $50,000 for this property, then whatever you can negotiate under $50,000 is your fee and your profit as a wholesaler.
Right. Yeah. So the better I am at negotiating that is how much money I technically make at the end. Is there ever a point where you would adjust your wholesale fee lower just to make your cash buyer a little bit more happy and a little bit more accepting of the deal? Does that happen a lot? Because I feel like that would happen to a beginner like me, where it's like, oh, I'm just starting out. I just want to get kind of this deal move forward with to get some deals under my belt, So have I guess your students come across this problem? Have you come across this problem before?
Yeah, I think a lot of like newer wholesalers will go into these deals and shooting for the moon and trying to rip a $50,000 wholesale fee on their first try.
Which would be great.
Of course, yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to make a home run on every deal?
Yeah.
The problem is it's going to make you offer a lot less competitively, and your offer is going to be very low. Like, so in that example, if you're shooting for $30,000 wholesale fee and you're offering $20,000 for that property, there might be investors offering $40,000 or $50,000 for that property. So you're just not going to be able to get your offer accepted.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for new wholesalers to get wins no matter how big or small. So I always recommend if you can even make $1,000 on your first wholesale deal, that's called proof of concept, right? You're going from 0 to 1,000. That's a huge win.
Right.
And so now you get a taste of what it feels like to be on the other side of the transaction where you're actually collecting the check. And so that is validation, and it shows you every step of the process, because a lot of wholesalers might not get to that point because they're just giving up too early, or again, they're shooting for the moon and they're missing out on a lot of deals. So I'd rather see someone make something and get the full experience, because now they're excited. Now they're like, wow, I just put some money in my pocket. And so now I can rinse and repeat. And now you're building a relationship with that cash buyer. So they're going to want to buy deals from you over and over and over again.
Right.
So it's important not to be too greedy and try to make that wholesale fee so rich that it sucks all the profit out of the deal. And make sure your buyer's getting a good deal so that they're going to pick up the phone when you call them next time, and they're going to look at your deals whenever you send it to them.
Right.
So that'd be my advice. Totally be flexible with it. And, you can start a little higher, but just have some wiggle room so that you're okay with making a smaller fee just to get momentum, because momentum's everything in this business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too greedy myself. I kind of just want to get, the deals done first so I can get that experience.
Totally.
I'm really glad you said that. So a lot hinges, though, I guess, on what the cash buyer is willing to pay, right? So what would you say is the best way to gauge that? Is there a specific number you shoot for, or do you just ask them or something? What's the best way to gauge what they want?
This is really the most important thing when calculating your wholesale offer price, right? That's the $1 million question. What is your cash buyer willing and able to pay, and what are they willing to commit to as soon as you present that contract to them?
Yeah.
So you have to understand, what is your cash buyer doing in real estate? Are they a fix and flipper? Are they buying, rehabbing, and selling the property for a profit? If they are, these investors typically require the biggest discount from market value, from the ARV. And so if you're wholesaling to rental property owners, to landlords who are looking to buy and hold a property and collect rental income, then those are the type of investors that will pay a little bit more for the same property typically, because they're not looking to get in and get out and make a nice chunk of capital. They're looking to buy and hold the property, collect income, over the next several years, and then eventually sell it, which has its own set of returns and timelines. So they're usually willing to pay a little bit more. And then there's also developer buyers too, which they're looking at the land as something that they can purchase, probably scrape the property and maybe build apartments or just do something with it. So my point here is you have to understand what the buyer is really doing in real estate. And the better wholesalers that we train and that we work with, they have a very dialed in knowledge of what their buyers are doing and how to calculate the desirable price that their buyers are looking for.
Right.
So for a fix and flipper, for example, because there's so many of them out there, that's one of the best strategies in real estate to make large chunks of capital, outside of wholesaling itself. So fix and flippers generally look for a 20 to 30% gross margin, and that's why they look for that 70% rule, right? As you've seen online or just floating around the internet and in the industry, a lot of investors will just quickly say, hey, I'm looking for the ARV times 70% minus repairs.
Yeah.
Because that's an amazing deal when you think about it. Again, you're paying $70,000 for something that's worth $100,000. So you're probably not going to lose on a deal like that. There are some people that say, I want to buy it at 60% of ARV minus repairs. And I'm just great for you. I would love deals like that, but we're probably not going to be wholesaling any deals to you because there are tons of investors, that we work with that are in the 80s, 80 to 85% of ARV minus repairs, and they're taking those deals all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So the better you can understand what your buyers are looking for and what price is going to be attractive to them, the more dialed in your wholesale offer price is going to be, because you just simply back out from that number whatever you want to charge for your wholesale fee.
Right.
So to your question, the best way is to ask your buyers, right? Ask them, what's your criteria? What's your buy box is another way of phrasing
Mm-hmm.
it. So what's your acquisition criteria? What types of property are you looking for? You want to start with the location, the types of rehab that they're looking to get into, their intended use of the property. Again, are they flipping? Are they renting the property? Are they looking for something that's a little bit more move-in ready that just needs some cosmetic updates? Or are they willing to rebuild foundations and redo electric and plumbing and get permitting? I know some investors that are building apartments and building units. So that's a completely different analysis. So the more you can think like an investor and think like a cash buyer and really the end buyer for your deal, the better off you're going to be as a wholesaler.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So really just picking your cash buyers' brains, spending time with them. That's why we always talk about building relationships with buyers and doing whatever you can to think as closely as you can with them, which is why we use our deal calculator when we're calculating our wholesale offer price. We don't advocate for the 70% rule when you're looking at buying a property, right? We like to take a more calculated approach because we like to look at the big picture. Not only is it good for wholesalers to get educated on all of the numbers that go into a fix and flip or buy and hold, but it allows you to make more competitive offers too. And as we'll get into a little bit later in the video, we can make higher offers pretty much every time using our deal calculator compared to a 70% rule investor or a 75% rule investor because of our approach to analyzing deals and submitting wholesale offers.
Yeah, the equations or the wholesale formulas themselves seem a little too simple and I'm always one to not create too much work for myself, work smarter, but it seems almost too simple to even make like a really good offer because you have other investors also competing for the same thing. In my mind, it's like the person with the most granular analysis will usually win at the end of the day because they put the work in, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that you brought up the cash buyer relationship thing because I feel like that's been brought up just so much as to how important that relationship actually is, right? So
totally. I mean, just for example, we're working on a deal right now in Colorado where I've got a great relationship with a buyer out there. He's already bought 50 houses this year. And so my acquisitions guy got a property under contract, multiple six figures under the asking price. So great deal. So I talked to the buyer and basically had him walk it yesterday, and he gave me a price that's going to work for him. And from there, it's like we know exactly where we need to be on our contract in order to make whatever we can squeeze in under that price. So that's why having a relationship is so key, because sometimes you can just simply ask your cash buyer, what would you pay for this property?
Yeah.
Right. And then now you just have to subtract your wholesale fee.
Yeah.
So that's why relationships are key. Otherwise, you're kind of guessing. If you don't have their criteria, then you can really dial it in as closely as possible. But if you can hear it from the buyer and they're willing to commit to it, then that's the most confident you can be in your negotiations.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's just say I found a property, again, just high level numbers because, it's I'm a beginner. Simple math is good, and then I can kind of adjust it later. But we've gone over the basic formulas. I have a calculator open right now as well. If you could just run me through how to calculate my wholesale offer price using this, because it seems straightforward. Once we get down to like lines like, maybe like 25, I'm just like, oh gosh, what is this? So if you could just run me through how to calculate your wholesale offer price using the deal calculator, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So this deal calculator is something that we use pretty much every day in our investing business. So I always like to start with the end in mind on a calculator like this. So again, guys, if you don't have the deal calculator yet, go ahead and click the link in the description so that you can get a copy of our deal calculator so that you can use it in your wholesaling and investing business, and you can follow along and really just get the most out of this. So I like to, again, start with the end in mind. That's the after repair value. So think of that as like, hey, you're selling something, right? At the end of the day, you're a fix and flipper and you want to sell something. So what's that total gross proceeds? What's the maximum amount of dollars you're going to receive from this property? That's what the after repair value is. So again, it's just the price of the property that someone's going to pay for on the market once it's fixed up and sold. And so that's really at the bottom of the calculator, but I always like to start there, right? Yeah, start with the end in mind, because that's really the most important number. Because if you can't get your ARV, then that's going to change the math on everything else in the deal.
Got it.
So if you guys need help calculating your after repair value, you really need to understand real estate comps. And so check out our other video on how to calculate the market value of a property using real estate comps. We go in detail so that you can make sure you're calculating your wholesale price very correctly and accurately. So check out that video if you guys need help on using real estate comps to figure out your ARV. So once you plugged in your ARV, so in this example, let's just call it $200,000 as an ARV. So you can kind of plug it into the deal calculator. Then next, you're going to want to plug in your repair costs, right? Your rehab estimate. So this is something that, again, you want to dial in as closely as possible. I would say it's a little bit less important than the after repair value itself, because if you talk to 3 different contractors on the same property, on the same scope of work, you might get 3 different repair costs. So you want to plug in your repair costs here. So in this example, let's call it $25,000. And again, guys, we have a video on how to estimate repair costs. So if you guys want to check that out, we'll leave the link in the description so that you can estimate rehab costs like a pro. From there, you can plug in what kind of wholesale fee you're looking to make on this opportunity. So Tim, how much do you want to make on this deal?
We always aim for 10,000. So I'm just let's plug in 10,000 now. If we have to adjust it later, which I probably ask you why, we can do that. Let's start at 10,000. Okay, perfect.
Great. So we've got, again, 200,000 ARV. We've got 25,000 in repairs and a $10,000 wholesale fee. Now we're going to plug in the holding costs. So property taxes, we're going to just ballpark this deal is going to be about $2,500 per year. So we're going to input that in the yellow cell. And then insurance, I like to ballpark, let's just say $150 per month. So you'd put $150 in that cell. Utilities, I ballpark about $100 a month. And of course, there are ways to get even more dialed in. Property taxes, you can just simply look up the property tax rate in your area, multiply it by your purchase price, which we'll get to in a second. And then that'll determine what your property taxes are going to be after you purchase the property.
Sorry to pause you, but I was looking on Redfin at a property. There was like a tax section. Is that like pretty accurate, you would say? Like for this section in the calculator, like the property taxes?
It's a good starting point.
Got it.
However, a lot of areas, a lot of counties will actually reassess the assessor's value, the appraised value of the property after a property is sold. So a lot of those tax numbers on Redfin are what the current tax rate is, which if the seller bought the property, 20 years ago, then those are going to be artificially low depending on where you live. So there are some counties that tax amount actually goes up in proportion to what the market value is. But in most cases, or a lot of cases, the tax rate will actually just stay very similar and just maybe creep up, 1% a year or a very nominal amount.
Got it.
So I think that's a great point, Tim, because a lot of flippers, a lot of wholesalers, like some investors, if they haven't been full cycle on a flip and they haven't bought property, they might run into an issue where they're using the old tax number and it might be artificially low. But then when they buy the property, that thing will get reassessed and their property tax might go up by 5-10x.
Right.
Because now the value has gone up significantly since the prior owner originally bought it, maybe in the 80s.
Got it.
So, if you're in a high property tax area like, I don't know, California or Texas, that can be tens of thousands of dollars a year depending on the purchase price.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's a good starting point, but not, entirely accurate.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
just look up what's the tax rate in your area, property tax rate. You can simply Google it, ChatGPT, and then multiply your new purchase price by that number.
Right. And then on the insurance line, is that like homeowners insurance?
Yeah,
Or-
it's
yeah.
it's when you're rehabbing a property, it's a little bit different of an insurance policy. It's
Okay.
like a under construction, vacant property type of policy. So it's usually a little bit higher. But I mean, I know some flippers who just get a regular homeowners policy and call it a day.
Okay. Yeah,
So yeah, that's just a ballpark. I've seen anywhere from $100 to $300 a month. So again,
Okay,
it's kind of like on the value of the property typically makes a difference on how much you're paying in insurance. So again, this is just a ballpark. The best way to get the accurate number is talk to an insurance rep, and generally you can get a quote within 24 to 48 hours. So, and again, guys, we're looking at all these numbers because we're looking through the lens of the end buyer. We're looking
Right.
through the lens of who are we wholesaling this property to? It's probably a fix and flipper in this case.
And they're looking at all of these. Like,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So again, some flippers, they might say, hey, I buy the 70% minus ARV. That's really back of the napkin math. But if you're going to be doing a project, in our fix and flip business, we always use a deal calculator just like this. So you can really get down to the dollar on what this property is going to produce, what our return is going to be. So again, that 70% rule is really just a quick, number. You can just run it on your phone real quick.
Yeah.
And but it's still it still will matter if you have your ARV and your repairs correct. Because if you don't have those correct, even the 70% rule is going to land you somewhere that is not going to really be very accurate or helpful.
I mean, this already has so much more than that rule has in it, so obviously I'm using this.
For sure. And it has you thinking like an investor,
Yeah.
right? Because most wholesalers don't want to be wholesalers forever.
Right.
They want to be able to fix and flip. They eventually want to roll those profits into buy and hold properties so that they can have long-term assets that will just snowball into serious wealth.
Yeah.
So this, again, has you thinking like an investor. Now you're asking great questions, Tim, and I'm proud of you for doing that. And so again, just keep going through here. Utilities costs. Cool. So the next line is HOA fees. So most properties are not in an HOA, but a lot of them are. So again, this is like condos, townhouses, or if your single family home is in a gated community, for example, or even not a gated community, just in a homeowners association, there's monthly fees. Sometimes they're quarterly fees. So you would put the monthly fee in this box. And then with all that being said, there's also closing costs underneath that. We ballpark 1%, but if you're in an area, like let's say you have a very low purchase price, you're probably going to want to bump that up to maybe 2% or 3%.
2%.
So as you transact in your market, maybe talk to a title company, talk to an escrow company, try to understand what the average closing costs are in your market so you can really dial that number in. But 1% is a ballpark for a cash transaction.
For the HOA fee part, what's a good ballpark for that section?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, they vary so much from
Right.
$30 a month, $50 a month to I've seen $1,500 per month for some HOAs.
Wow.
Like if you're in a high-end area with a lot of amenities, especially these new luxury developments that are popping up,
Right.
those are going to have some hefty HOA fees. So there's really no ballparking that. It's very easy to find that out. So if you're pursuing a property, you can just simply ask the listing agent, ask the seller, and you can plug in the actual number there.
Okay,
But
cool.
if you want to plug in $300, you can just to have something there. And if there's no HOA, then that's an extra cushion on your deal.
Yeah,
So
nice.
never hurts to have a little extra wiggle room in your budget. So once you have all of those numbers plugged in, then I like to go up to projected hold time of the property. So how long is this property going to take to purchase, fix up, relist on the market, and then close with a new buyer? So I like to look at the rehab budget and then determine how long is that rehab realistically going to take. So a good rule of thumb for everybody out there is for every $10,000 of repairs needed on a property, that's about 1 week of construction time.
Okay.
So in this case, we have $25,000 budgeted for repairs. Then I would estimate about like 2.5, let's call it 3 weeks for the repairs budget or for the repairs timeline. So assuming we get started on that immediately, that's 3 weeks. We can put it on the market. Let's call that 1 month total to rehab it and put it back on the market. And let's say there's 30 days on the market. That's another month. And then let's say we get a buyer under contract in that month, and that buyer takes another 30 days to close on the property. So that's about a 3-month project, which for this size of rehab is very doable. So then we can put 3 months in there for projected hold time. So once we have a projected hold time inputted into this calculator, that's going to automatically calculate the actual property tax number, the actual insurance cost, utilities costs, and then if we had an HOA, it'll actually calculate that cost based on the number of months that we've actually held the property, right? The hold time for the project. Because the property tax amount, we put in the annual rate, because that's typically when you're getting property tax info, it shows you the annual number, like what's the property tax rate for the whole year. So our calculator factors in what's the precise number that you're actually going to be liable for as the owner of this property for only 3, 4, 6 months, however long the project takes.
Got it.
So based on that, we can now see what are the total costs and fees involved. In this case, it's about $36,000, a little bit more than that. And so these are all the important numbers that we're going to need to ultimately determine our wholesale offer price. So now let's actually massage this number to figure out what's a good purchase price for the property. So let's just say we wanted to start at, $150,000, right? If this thing is worth $200,000, in our example earlier, we said, hey, a 20% discount from the ARV would equal about $160,000. That did not factor in repairs. That did not factor in the wholesale fee. So let's just call it $150,000. So if we scroll down to the bottom, now that we've plugged in all of our numbers, we can now see what the deal net profit is in this deal. So it's worth noting that once we have a purchase price in this spreadsheet, this basically, just to recap, we've got $150,000 as our purchase price. Again, just our initial number to test it out. Let's say it's listed for $150,000. So we plug in the list price just to see if it works at list price. We've got a 3-month hold time. There's a $10,000 wholesale fee on top of this. So our cash buyer would basically be paying $160,000 for this property. We need to put in $25,000 in repairs. We've got some holding costs. We have some closing costs on the acquisition. And so all in, all that added together is $187,000 and some change. So almost $188,000. So this is called our total investment. This means this is the purchase, the rehab, and our holding costs and the wholesale fee. So all in, this investor is going to be in at, let's call it $188,000 for a property that's worth $200,000.
Right.
So that's a very, very thin margin. And you might think, oh, okay, well, there's $12,000 of profit, but not so fast. So we have what's called sales costs. So if you want to put that property on the market and sell it, then you're going to need to hire a listing agent, right? Most likely, unless you're able to find a buyer off market and do a deal directly with that buyer, then you're going to hire a real estate broker to list the property. And you're probably also going to be paying a buyer's broker to bring a willing and able buyer to buy the property. So that's why we have a section in this calculator called sales costs, which account for the listing broker commission, the buyer broker commission, and there's going to be closing costs on the resale of the property, right? There might be transfer taxes. There's going to be title insurance involved. There's going to be, fees, notary fees, et cetera. So there's about, anywhere from 6 to 8% of sales costs involved, most of that being real estate agent commissions, but there can be taxes and other closing costs involved to get the deal done. So that $200,000 now will have to be reduced by, about 5 to 8%, sometimes more or less than that. But in this case, our numbers, we've got 1.5% budgeted for the listing broker. So in our case, that's $3,000 paid to the listing broker. We have 2.5% reserved for the buyer's broker. That's $5,000, and another 1% reserved for closing costs. So total sales costs are $10,000. So right off the top, that only that takes $200 down to $190, and what's left in profit if we've spent $188,000 to get to that point?
Yeah.
There's $2,000 of profit.
Not a lot. Yeah.
So I like to make a lot more than $2,000 in 3 months of doing a project, right? I don't think anyone would think that's worth it.
Right.
So it's not only the deal net profit dollars, it's also we look at the deal ROI. So someone might say, oh yeah, like $2,000 is great. Why wouldn't you want to do that? It's still profit. But if you have to spend $188,000, you're putting that at risk to make $2,000. That's not a very good return on investment. So that's why we have what's called the deal ROI. And so that is simply a formula that is taking the total net profit on the deal, which in this case was a little over $2,000, divided by our total investment on the deal. So it's kind of like a profit margin in this fix and flip deal. So in this case, it's only a little bit over 1% of profit margin.
Yeah.
So you can get, right now, you can get more of a return on your money if you just put your money in a high yield savings account that's paying 4%.
Yeah.
So why would you take the risk of buying a property, working with contractors, and then reselling and doing all this work to make 1% on your money? It's probably not worth it. So here's where we massage the numbers. This is how we actually calculate our wholesale offer price. So, and this is extremely important to know what's your buyer's criteria, right? What deal ROI is your buyer looking for? What profit margin is your cash buyer looking for? And what are the total net profit dollars that they're going to need to make at least as a minimum in order for them to say yes to a deal?
Right. So like, that's why it's so important to like nail that down or confirm it from them, because now we just massage it until we reach those numbers, and then that's golden pretty much, you know?
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. So now let's just say, you know, so this comes down to talking to cash buyers, right? You want to understand what's the minimum net profit that you're looking to make on a fix and flip. What's that deal ROI minimum that you're looking for?
Right.
I've wholesaled dozens of deals to a buyer who their minimum criteria was $25,000 of net profit per deal and a 15% deal ROI. So it had to check both of those boxes. And so if we wanted to meet that criteria, then we could offer at a certain rate. And if we had another buyer who said, I need to make 20% deal ROI and $35,000 of net profit, we can offer a different price, right? We'd have to offer a lower price. So this is why it's so important to know your buyer's criteria and know that the more aggressive your buyer is willing to be on their fix and flip deals, right? The lower profit margin your buyer is willing to take, the lower profit dollars they're willing to take on a deal, the more aggressive and more competitive your offers as a wholesaler are going to be, because you're not trying to swing for the fences and hit a home run on every deal.
Right.
So let's just see if we wanted to analyze this for a $25,000 net profit and a 15% ROI. What would our offer price be? Why don't you tell me, Tim? What would that price be? I don't know. Okay. All right. I'll help you out. So if we went from $150,000 purchase price to $140,000 purchase price, that gets us to about $12,000 in deal net profit and a 6.8% deal ROI. So that's not quite good enough, is it, Tim? So if we go to $130,000 in purchase price, all else being the same, now this deal is producing $22,000 in net profit and a 13.3% deal ROI. So we're close. We're very close, right? They might be tempted to take the deal, but if they have a very strict criteria, they might just say no right off the bat and say, hey, I need a better price. So at this point, this is called massaging the numbers. This is how we structure our offer to make it the most competitive, really down to the dollar of knowing that our buyer is going to be willing to take it and how high can we offer. So let's go down to 120 and see where we're at. So now if we offered 120 on this property, all else being the same, this is going to produce a $32,425 deal net profit for us here and a 20.58% deal ROI. So bingo, we would definitely have a deal with my buyer. He would take this all day.
Got it. I see why now you started with the ARV first, right? And then now we're massaging purchase price of the property in that cell, and then that adjusts everything in the deal ROI section to get to that 20%. That's the, yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So again, let's say, hey, we made our offer at 120 and the seller's like, no way, I need more than that. So now we can either increase our purchase price of the property, we can double check our rehab numbers, or we can even massage our wholesale fees. So now let's see what's our maximum allowable offer, right? We know 120 works, right? 100 would work, of course. But what's our maximum allowable offer? So at 125, we're at a 27,000 net profit. So at 127, we're at a $25,000 net profit and some change, and a 15.4% deal ROI. So really, that's our maximum allowable offer on this deal is about $127,000. And so that's where I'd feel comfortable maxing out our offer at. So of course you could offer more if you're willing to lower your wholesale fee. So you could go as high as $132,000 in purchase price if you charged a $5,000 wholesale fee. So there is a little bit of wiggle room if you're willing to be flexible to get the deal done. It's better to have 100% of something than
nothing.
No, yeah.
0% of nothing. Yeah.
So it's better to make something than ultimately nothing on a deal. So it's, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's better to make $1,000, better to make $5,000 than nothing at all and losing the deal to somebody else. So,
got it. Okay, so it's safe to say then, massaging your wholesale fee a little bit also will get the numbers you want for your cash buyer. So those two things you can adjust if it's like way too low.
Yeah. So you can know with confidence, again, as long as you have your after repair dialed in, your after repair value accurate, and you're confident about that, you have 3 to 5 solid real estate comps, you have your repairs budget dialed in, then now it's just a matter of playing with the numbers and knowing what your cash buyers are willing to take as far as a deal. Again, that's why we emphasize vetting them up front. And so I'd also like to just make a point that if we use the 70% rule on this deal, where's the maximum allowable offer if we use a 70% rule? So let's just take $200,000. Let's the ARV. Let's multiply it by 70%, and then subtract our repairs budget of $25,000, and then subtract our wholesale fee of $10,000. Now our maximum allowable offer is $100,005.
Right.
$105,000.
Yeah.
So that's $22,000 off of where we're able to offer using our deal calculator and solving for a 15% deal ROI and a $25,000 net profit.
Yeah. Way more competitive. Yeah.
So much
way
more competitive.
Accurate, yeah.
Which offer is the seller going to take?
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, it's just a matter of finding the buyers that are looking to do volume and not just hit a home run on every deal. Right? The buyers we work with are doing at least 30 to 50 deals a year. They're okay with a $25,000, $30,000 net profit on these deals because they're making it up in volume, right? If you're making $30,000 per flip, but you're doing 50 flips a year, that's a lot of money. That's over $1 million.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of buyers we want to work with, not the ones that need a huge discount, right? 30, 40, 50% discount to ARV. I honestly laugh when wholesalers tell me, oh, my buyer's telling me I need properties for 50 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
That you're not going to be doing a lot of deals in this market.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I mean, this has been great. Clearly, the value of the deal calculator is miles above any formula that I find online. So, yeah, thank you so much for running me through that. And, to the viewers, too, I'm sure they found that super helpful because so many people ask, even myself, how to use this thing for their wholesale deals. So, before we kind of close today, any important tips about calculating your wholesale offer price? Anything you wish you would have known as a beginner running through those numbers?
Yeah, I think a lot of newer wholesalers kind of get caught in paralysis by analysis and they get stuck in the numbers. But I like to just remind everyone, like, if you do the math will tell you what to do.
Right.
And so that means trust the math, trust your numbers, and that will tell you what a good deal is and what a good deal is not. And so once you kind of hit those thresholds, then that should give you the confidence to move forward, get that offer in, and then lock that deal up. And then, again, worst case, you get feedback from your buyer. They might give you a price that is lower than what you have it at. But as long as you get your commitment, you can go back and renegotiate that contract based on your inspections, based on your finding, and then you can strike up a deal as long as that works for everybody involved. Mm-hmm. Another thing I'd mention is that, pretend like it's your own money. Pretend like it's your money on the line. Pretend like it's your money that you're going to be buying this property with, fixing it up, and then reselling it. So you're probably going to take it a lot more seriously when you're running your comps, when you're running these numbers, and you're not going to be inclined to stretch the numbers so much. Mm-hmm. So just keep that in mind and just, take it seriously so that when someone else looks at it, they can tell that you've spent the time and you've dedicated yourself to making sure it's a good deal for them too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kind of treat them how, like, if you were an investor working with a wholesaler, like how you would want to do deals,
Yeah, absolutely. And really, just stay in tune with what's happening in your market. Strategies do change. There are different buyers in different markets. There are some markets where there's a lot of redevelopment happening, and so buyers might be willing to overpay depending on their strategy, right? They might be looking at redeveloping properties, and so they're looking at land value because they have a huge exit value beyond what a typical fix and flipper or a landlord might be willing to pay, and vice versa. In some markets, there might not be a lot of fix and flips happening, but there might be a lot of rentals. So just be in tune with what buyers in your market are looking for and be a student of those strategies. Really go to the RIAs, network with other investors, with other wholesalers, and just see what is happening in your market. Like, see where the money is going, because if you're on trend and you're keeping up with that, then you as a wholesaler, your job is to get in front of that and spoon feed these investors deals that they're looking for.
Right.
So the more in tune you are with where the money's going in your market, the better you can position yourself to get a little piece of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great advice. Thank you so much. I feel very confident now, hopefully to calculate a wholesale price of my own with houses I see, worth wholesaling. So thank you again. I'll be sure to use this instead of, the formula to see online. And see you in the next video as well.
Yeah, of course, Tim. Always happy to answer your questions. Always happy to help you on your wholesaling journey. And for everybody else out there, if you guys have any questions on what we covered today about using our deal calculator, about calculating your wholesale offer price, go ahead and let us know in the comments below. We read every one of them. We'll answer your questions as they come in. And we'd love to hear your feedback too. So if there's anything you want to see more of in the future, any additional topics, let us know in the comments. And if you liked what you saw today, be sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, because there's a lot more to come, and we look forward to seeing you in the next videos. And if you haven't already, guys, be sure to download our deal calculator by clicking the link in the description and going to realestateskills.com/calculator. Be sure to save it so that you can use it in your wholesale deals and in your fix and flip businesses. It's one of the most important tools that we use every single day in our businesses, and we're sure that you're going to get a ton of value out of it. So thanks for watching, everybody. We look forward to seeing you in the next video.